Hello, white people. Do you have your Stepford wife-esque plastic smile ready? Here we go. We're going to talk about the potato in charge who's trying to push through this omnibus bill. Meaning Congress is the one that's going to pass it, but he's proposing it, and of course, Congress is busy, adding pork to it. But anyway, this bill, boy, it's chock full of all kinds of goodness. We'll all be holding hands. Finally, we'll be able to hold hands and sing Kumbaya as we wear our plastic smile. So, anyway, the potato in charge thinks that we need money for infrastructure when people who work in construction are so overwhelmed right now with projects because there is a limit on skilled workers. And a lot of people don't realize that even though these people, these people coming into our country legally, these legal citizens, they're doctors and lawyers. They're not construction workers. So doctors and lawyers just can't do this kind of work. So I have a series of articles here from a website called Construction Dive. First, it's going to talk about the infrastructure bill that the potato is proposing, and then the last couple articles are going to be about OSHA and then about pushing for the big stab. All right, I hope that you guys enjoy. Biden's $2 trillion infrastructure plan has something for everyone, and that's its biggest risk. Oh, thank you, Jesus. While some groups praised the package, others found issues with its pitch of the PRO Act, as well as raising taxes on businesses to pay for it. Because, businesses are cash cows. This is dated April 1st, 2021. Great, on April Fool's Day. Oh, I guess it was published March 31st, but updated on April Fool's Day. With a $2 trillion spending proposal that dwarfs both the New Deal and the build-out of the American interstate highway system, President Potato provided long-awaited details for a massive infrastructure plan that touches on everything from airports to highways, clean drinking water to revamped electric grids, school construction to public transit and clean energy to bolstered broadband deployment. Doesn't sound like a reset at all, does it? Biden's American Jobs Plan, released on Wednesday, carves out $621 billion for transportation infrastructure, $689 billion for buildings and utilities, and $500 billion for worker training, research and development, and domestic manufacturing initiatives. Noting that public domestic investment as a share of the economy has fallen 40% since the 1960s. The White House proposed to pay for the plan over 15 years, primarily by hiking the corporate tax rate to 28% from 21%, a move that would partially erase former President Donald Trump's tax reform legacy. On the transportation front, the proposal includes $174 billion for electric vehicle incentives because they just don't frickin' work and they're expensive. That's why they have to do incentives. $115 billion for roads and bridges, $85 billion for public transit. Oh boy, public transit, so we can be like Europe. $80 billion for passenger and freight rail, $50 billion in disaster resilience of infrastructure, $25 billion for airports, $20 billion to improve road safety. Oh God, what are they going to do? Put bumps on freeways? $20 billion to mitigate infrastructure impact on underserved communities. $20 billion to mitigate infrastructure impact on underserved communities. What in the world does this even mean? Doesn't line somebody's pockets. $17 billion for waterways and ports. For buildings and utilities, the plan includes $213 billion for affordable housing, so we can all be prisoners. $100 billion for broadband internet. Wait a minute, $213 for affordable housing. Why is the government in the industry of providing affordable housing? $100 billion for electric grid and clean energy. Oh God, clean energy. $100 billion for public schools. You mean communist training camps. $66 billion for water systems that have fluoride in them. $45 billion to eliminate lead pipes. Lead pipes are good for you, right? $25 billion for child care facilities. $25 billion for child care facilities, so you don't get to raise your kids anymore. $18 billion for veterans hospitals, $12 billion for community colleges, and $10 billion for federal buildings. Companies and business groups quickly responded on Wednesday with policy statements reacting to the breadth and scope of the plan. The American Society of Civil Engineers applauds President Biden's American Jobs Plan, a truly historic proposal for modernizing and improving the nation's infrastructure. It's proposal, said Jean-Louis Briard, of the president of ASCE, which recently gave the country's infrastructure a C- grade. Via an emailed statement, ASCE urges Congress and the administration to now work together to develop a comprehensive, bipartisan infrastructure bill that will set the plan in motion. Rebuilding and modernizing our infrastructure systems while growing the economy, increasing public safety, and creating jobs and more resilient communities. But it also immediately stirred controversy in the construction sector by including a call from the president for Congress to pass the Protect the Right to Organize Act, to which construction employer groups have voiced strong opposition. The president is right to focus on rebuilding a broad range of aging and overburdened infrastructure and modernizing buildings, said Stephen Sandher, CEO of the Associated General Contractors of America, in a statement. But he said, by seeking to couple his new infrastructure proposal with the dangerous PRO Act, the president is signaling that infrastructure investments must come at the expense of labor harmony and economic certainty. He said paying for the plan through a tax increase on business will limit the ability of many employers to invest in capital improvement that will provide additional career opportunities for construction workers. Michael Bellaman, CEO of Associated Builders and Contractors, was also critical of the proposal. Unfortunately, much of the Biden plan ignores ABC's infrastructure policy recommendations while proposing tax increases on job-creating construction firms that are still recovering from the effects of the mindfuck pandemic, Bellaman said in a statement. While policy details are still emerging, why are they still emerging? And the infrastructure plan will need to go through Congress. It is disappointing to see the Biden administration support the use of divisive government-mandated project labor agreement schemes on taxpayer-funded construction jobs. Congressional pushback. Jacob Arleen, is that right? Arleen, principal at San Francisco-based engineering and energy efficiency consultancy, Stock, said the scope of the plan is remarkable, but that its breadth could also be its Achilles heel. The amount of money in this bill is staggering, and the commitment to spend some of the money to directly address climate change is a huge step forward. Arleen said. There are more winners that will benefit from this bill, and that may be its downfall. It tries to tackle a myriad of problems beyond infrastructure, and putting too many of those problems in one behemoth omnibus bill will make it difficult to pass. While infrastructure reform has had bipartisan ideological support in Congress, Republicans have already balked at the idea of raising taxes to pay for it. The powerful business groups have signaled their opposition to the strategy as well. Joshua Bolten, CEO of the influential Business Roundtable, told the New York Times he strongly opposes corporate tax increases as a pay for infrastructure investment. During a speech in Pittsburgh to sell the plan, Biden said he was open to alternatives to paying for the proposal. These are my ideas on how to pay for this plan, Biden said from a carpenters union training hall where he presented the specifics of the proposal. If others have other ideas, let them come forward. I'm open to other ideas so long as they do not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. Sanya Carley, a professor and director of the Public Affairs program at Indiana University, said the plan is singular in American history. This is definitely one of the largest in history and is more than just infrastructure, she said. It's a hybrid of a New Deal in combination with a stimulus package focused on jobs, equity, and climate. But like others, she said the broad scope of the proposal could also open it to opposition. Everybody says that infrastructure is a bipartisan issue, but it's very difficult to pass it because the devil's in the details of where the money is actually going, Carley said, and this is a plan that has elements that might just stir the pot a little bit for some people. Alrighty, so here's the deal. We have two groups of people fighting each other, and the first group of people are the ones that want to sit on their fat asses, talk about pie in the sky fantasies to make everybody feel warm and fuzzy, and they want to spend money doing it. And then there's a second group of people who work their asses off, who don't have any extra time because they're working so hard and they're building stuff, and they're the ones that are creating the money. So when the people who are creating the money and building things get pissed off enough, all this horse shit's gonna stop. House passage of the PRO Act denounced by contractor group as an absolute shame. The House of Representatives approved the Protecting the Right to Organize Act late Tuesday night on a 225 to 206 vote that saw 5 Republicans joining Democrats in favor because they're probably rhinos. The PRO Act would amend aspects of the National Labor Relations Act and grant workers more benefits and rights while changing how unions and employers collectively bargain. Employer groups including Associated Builders and Contractors and the Associated General Contractors of America have long opposed the measure and one similar to it. The broader impact of the PRO Act should be enacted as is a new era of labor unrest and will stifle future economic activity and job growth. The AGC CEO Stephen Sandher said in a statement shared with Construction Dive. It is an absolute shame that House Democrats would vote to strip workers of their privacy, freedom, and choice, ABC CEO Mike Bellaman said in a statement Tuesday, calling the PRO Act short-sighted. Aspects of the PRO Act that employer groups oppose include authorizations of secondary boycotts, where unions picket firms that are not directly involved with them, amendments to the union authorization process, and forcing workers to pay union dues in order to receive benefits from those unions. Wait a minute. You know something, just in case you don't know this, did you know that in some places, some companies that have unions, people don't have to pay to be in the union, but if they have difficulty with the administration, the union will come and help them? That's ridiculous. Anyway. The provisions in the PRO Act are many, but included in it are changes to the union certification process. An initial vote to certify a union will still be anonymous, Elliot Haney, attorney at the Cottney Construction Law, told Construction Dive in February. That's the name of this website, Construction Dive. In the appeal process, however, unions may ask workers to share how they voted, which some fear will compel them to vote differently. Elimination of right-to-work states, or states where laws prohibit union security agreements. This does not force workers to join unions or pay dues, but rather allow employers and unions to agree to the extent unions can compel workers to join. Haney said there are 27 right-to-work states. The fair share approach to collective bargaining. In right-to-work states, some workers receive benefits without paying union dues. Here we go. Some workers receive benefits without paying union dues. Under the PRO Act, workers would need to pay dues for union representation, according to Haney. Yeah, you do need to pay. Sorry if people don't like that. I know it's really expensive, but... Redefining employees and employers. Under the PRO Act, the definition of employee and employer in the NLRA would change, making it easier for workers to qualify for benefits and making employers more responsible for those they have any impact on their work sites, Haney said, making employers more responsible. In his statement, Bellaman said the CV pandemic has led to devastating job losses in construction and that contractors will need to hire... Wait a minute. The pandemic has led to devastating job losses in construction? Let me think about this. No? That's actually not true, unless it's something that I'm not aware of, and that contractors will need to hire hundreds of thousands more workers this year to keep up with project demand. The PRO Act, Bellaman said, would hinder contractors' ability to hire skilled professionals. In a time of economic recovery, lawmakers should be working collaboratively and productively on legislation that will help our employees achieve their career dreams, Bellaman said. The PRO Act is the farthest cry from the solution that our economy, businesses, and workers need. A version of the PRO Act was passed in the House last year, but then Republican-controlled Senate failed to vote on it. They died because it was bad. Democrats now control the Senate by a narrow margin, but Republicans could use a filibuster to derail the bill, which means that at least 60 senators, 9 more than a simple majority, would be needed to move the legislation to a vote. Under this scenario, Democrats likely will not have enough votes required to bring the bill for a vote, which means the PRO Act could languish in the Senate. Kristen Swearingen, Vice President of Legislative and Political Affairs at ABC, told Construction Dive. 10 ways construction companies can outsmart the labor shortage. This is an article from February 26th, 2015. The U.S. construction industry created more than 200,000 jobs in 2014, a reflection of the steady demand for buildings, roadwork, and new homes, according to the latest data from the ADP Research Institute, The Predicament. But usurping that good news are these reports. Construction executives in Atlanta rank difficulty filling open jobs as the industry's top uncertainty, according to Sterling Risk Advisors. The Associated General Contractors of America report that 83% of contractors are having trouble finding qualified skilled labor to meet the demand. There you go. See all these doctors and lawyers coming in. They can't build stuff. They can only do service jobs. Home builders in Southwest Florida note it's taking longer than usual to finish jobs because they can't find skilled workers to staff their crews. While engineering and construction executives in FMI's Non-Residential Construction Index panel says they are strongly optimistic about the industry and the economy, that sentiment is muted by concern over the lack of skilled workforce. The National Association of Home Builders and the Bureau of Labor Statistics deemed December 2014 the third highest month of unfilled construction jobs since the recession ended. BLS is predicting the construction industry will face a shortage of 1.6 million workers by 2022. The cause? With plenty of open jobs and a steady stream of incoming projects, construction firms and home builders can offer reliable, well-paying gigs to workers who qualify for positions ranging from unskilled laborers to skilled trades to professional designers and managers to office staff. Yet job hunters aren't lining up to fill those roles. Industry observers point to a variety of culprits. High schools over the years have shifted their focus from teaching job skills to preparing students for college. And they've done this since I was in high school. That was back in, that's when the first rocks were brought in. During the recession, the construction industry laid off almost 2 million workers. Now that the economy is improving, it needs crew members back, at least the skilled ones. But those experienced workers have already found other jobs or have retired from the workforce. Many available workers don't have the skills needed on job sites, so even though unemployment rates are still high in some areas of the country, the skills of the job seekers don't quite fit the needs of construction employers. The oil and gas industries over the past couple of years have poached construction workers right off of job sites with the promise of higher pay and hefty bonuses. That has created an even deeper shortage of qualified construction crews. The prescription, commercial insurance and risk management company Gibson advises its construction industry clients don't get bogged down by the challenges presented with the labor shortage. Be proactive with your recruiting, hiring, and workforce management strategies to help combat this issue. Here are 10 ways construction firms and builders can ease the pain of the labor shortage. Create a safe place to work. Before I read further, okay, if any of you know anything about construction, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's probably one of the most unsafe industries out there where people get killed because they're using big machinery. If that machinery tips over, the person inside the cab gets crushed. Anyway, reading on. Companies with a culture of safety and a reputation for taking care of their own are more attractive to skilled workers who are shopping around for the best jobs. Carefully screen job applicants. Oh my God. Who wrote this article? They're a damn retard. Ugh, they just said above in the article that they can't find the skilled workers. Make sure to hire employees who have the right skills and who plan to stick around. Replacing employees is difficult and expensive. Retention is an effective way to keep crews staffed. Let's see, what was this? The prescription. 10 ways construction firms and builders can ease the pain of the labor shortage. Okay, so careful who's green. Okay, there's nobody out there who can work. Constantly train employees. Whether they're new or have been around for a while, help employees keep their skills up to date. And encourage long-timers to mentor and pass their knowledge on to newcomers. Enlist manufacturers of the products you buy to train your crews. All right. Coach the employees of the future. Offer to mentor students at local high schools and vocational schools. Work with high schools to identify students who are not suited for the 4-year college track and redirect them to construction apprenticeships and craft training programs that teach technical skills and prepare them to work in the industry. All right, well, that's going to be tough, but I mean, it's doable. We're at a point now where it's a little bit on the late side, but better late than never. Crank up pay and benefits. When there's stiff competition among builders for crews as well as contracts, the employer with the best perks and pay is likely to win at recruiting. Cater to older employees. They're typically loyal and experienced, and losing them to retirement or to competitors can sting. Offer the same training opportunities to middle-aged workers as the younger crews, and take their needs into consideration when evaluating job site safety. Commit to hiring vets. Oh my God. Okay. The only reason I think that that's stupid is because when somebody becomes a vet, it's not like they just completely they don't just become some homeless slump sitting next to a building. People who get out of the military it's not like they've completely left society. A lot of them were in units where they have trades that will transfer over to civilian life. But anyway, just about a year ago, 100 construction companies joined First Lady Michael Obama, first man, and officials from the U.S. Department of Labor to pledge that they would hire 100,000 veterans over the next 5 years. That's like trying to find or pull teeth from a chicken. To that end, the federally funded Helmets to Hard Hats program connects military members who are transitioning to civilian life with career training and job opportunities in the construction trades. The program is sponsored by 15 trade unions and industry associations. Catch them on the rebound. There you go, that's what I do. The situation has changed on oil fields, where drillers have begun to lay off workers who are highly trained in some of the same skills needed on construction sites. Aggressively recruit those qualified workers who won't be out of work for long, given that your competitors are hoping to beat you to them. Co-op with manufacturers. Work with manufacturers to bundle installation with sales so their well-trained crews put in windows and install other products for you. The more they do for you, the fewer hard-to-find trades you'll need to hire. Connect with other organizations. Join national industry groups and pay their fees that are pushing for legislative reforms. Oh, and the funding of vocational education. Lobby Congress, because everybody's got time for that. Your state legislature and local authorities on your own through the industry organizations for legislation friendly to the construction industry and to employers. Out of all of the articles that I am reading for this video, this is the most important one, and this is the one that everybody should know about. We had a shortage of construction workers back in 2014. How many years ago was that? That's 6 years ago. 6 years ago. And the shortage is only going to get worse because the people working in construction right now are people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Keep that in mind. And when these people start retiring or these people become disabled and not able to work, that workforce is just going to continue to shrink. And when we no longer have enough people to work in construction, that means on infrastructure, our roads are going to fall in disrepair. Our buildings are going to start crumbling. We are going to look like a third world country. Everything is going to fall apart because we allowed our school system to push pie in the sky, fantasy, high paying jobs on our youth. And you know something? It's the parents' fault for this because, you know, the boomers, when they're raising their kids and sending them off to high school, they all had this fantasy idea that if you had a desk job, your life would be so much better than if you worked a physical labor job. And the thing is if you don't work a job where you make something, where you produce something, you know, those jobs are reliant. The jobs that don't produce anything, like the desk jobs, they are reliant on the people who build stuff. So if you don't have anybody building anything, you're not going to have any service jobs. You're not going to have any, you know, you won't need accountants. You won't need, you won't need anything because there's nobody building anything. The entire system is going to crash. The construction industry is the foundation of our economy. All right, so in this next article, we're going to venture into the land of stupid. I hope you're wearing clean underwear. OSHA launches CV19 National Emphasis Program prioritizes on-site inspections. OSHA has introduced a new national emphasis program aimed at companies that put the largest number of workers at risk for exposure to the CV. The new initiative is in response to the Potatoes Executive Order on Protecting Worker Health and Safety. I wonder if that's a link. Hang on here. It is a link. Let's see what happens. Here we go. We're right at the White House. Executive Order on Protecting Worker Health and Safety. By the authority vested in me as President... Sound like a pastor proceeding over a wedding here. By the authority vested in me as the potato by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, it is hereby ordered as followed. Section 1 Policy. Ensuring the health and safety of workers is a national priority and a moral imperative. Healthcare workers and other essential workers, many of whom are people of, oh dear God, people of color and immigrants. Okay, excuse me while my blood boils, have put their lives on the line during the CV19 stupidity. It is the policy of my administration to protect the health and safety of workers from CV19. The federal government must take swift action to reduce the risk that workers may contract CV19 in the workplace. That will require issuing science-based guidance to help keep workers safe from CV19 exposure, including with respect to face diapers, partnering with state and local governments to better protect public employees, enforcing worker health and safety requirements, enforcing and pushing for additional resources to help employers protect employees, because everybody's a child. Protecting workers from CV19 under the Occupational Safety and Health Act. The Secretary of Labor, acting through the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health, in furtherance of the policy described in Section 1 of this order and consistent with applicable law, shall issue within 2 weeks of the date of this order and in conjunction or consultation with the heads of any other appropriate executive departments and agencies revised guidance to employers on workplace safety during the CV19 pandemic. Consider whether any emergency temporary standards on CV19, including with respect to face diapers in the workplace, are necessary, and if such standards are determined to be necessary, issue them by March 15, 2021. Review the enforcement efforts of the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, related to CV19 and identify any short, medium, and long-term changes that could be made to better protect workers and ensure equity in enforcement. Oh my gosh. Launch a national program to focus OSHA enforcement launch a national program to focus OSHA enforcement efforts related to CV19 on violations that put the largest number of workers at serious risk or are contrary to anti-retaliation principles, and coordinate with the Department of Labor's Office of Public Affairs and Office of Public Engagement and all regional OSHA offices to conduct, consistent with applicable law, a multilingual outreach campaign to inform workers and their representatives of their rights under applicable law. This campaign shall include engagement with labor unions, community organizations, and industries, and place a special emphasis on communities hit hardest by the pandemic. Protecting other categories of workers from the CV19, the Secretary of Labor, acting through the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Occupational Safety and Health, and consistent with applicable law, shall coordinate with states that have occupational safety and health plans approved under Section 18 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act to seek to ensure that workers covered by such plans are adequately protected from CV19, consistent with any revised guidance or emergency temporary standards issued by OSHA, and in states that do not have such plans, consult with state and local government entities with responsibility for public employee safety and health and with public employee unions to bolster protection from CV19 for public sector workers. The Secretary of Agriculture, the Secretary of Labor, the Secretary of Health and Human Services, the Secretary of Transportation, and the Secretary of Energy, in consultation with the heads of any other appropriate agencies, shall, consistent with applicable law, explore mechanisms to protect workers not protected under the Act so that they remain healthy and safe on the job during the CV19 pandemic. The Secretary of Labor, acting through the Assistant Secretary of Labor for Mines, Safety, and Health, shall consider whether any emergency temporary standards on CV19 applicable to coal and metal or non-metal mines are necessary, and if such standards are determined to be necessary and consistent with applicable law, issue them as soon as practicable. Section 4. General Provisions. Nothing in this order shall be construed to impair or otherwise affect the authority granted by law to an executive department or agency or the head thereof, or the functions of the director of the Office of Management and Budget relating to budgetary, administrative, or legislative proposal. This order shall be implemented consistent with applicable law and subject to the availability of appropriations. This order is not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities, its officers, employees, or agents, or any other person. Oh, that was exhausting and boring, wasn't it? Let's go back to what we were reading before. Let's see here. As part of the program, the agency will also focus on employers that retaliate against workers who lodge complaints related to job site safety and perform follow-up inspections on work sites that were inspected in 2020 to ensure effectiveness of OSHA efforts. OSHA will target certain employers as part of the program, including those that engage in heavy and civil engineering, construction, and specialty trade contracting. The program, which is slated to last 1 year but could be extended if necessary, will prioritize on-site inspections, thereby rescinding the order OSHA issued in May. OSHA will visit job sites unless it is unsafe to do so. Okay, what's the order that OSHA issued in May? Okay, so May 29, 2020, this is almost a year ago. OSHA issues new CV19 guidance. OSHA has issued 2 new pieces of enforcement guidance for employers, one for recording CV19 cases and the other regarding its plan for on-site inspections. Both are limited to the duration of the current novel CV public health crisis. The agency said employers must record a case if the employee's illness is diagnosed as CV19 as defined by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, is work-related and meets one or more of OSHA's general recording criteria: death, days away from work, restricted work or transfer to another job, medical treatment beyond first aid, loss of consciousness, or a diagnosis considered significant by a physician or other healthcare professional. In the other directive, OSHA said that in areas of the United States where the spread of CV19 has decreased, it will return to its pre-pandemic inspection policy, but that it will continue to prioritize CV19 cases, will use phone, fax, and rapid response inspections where appropriate. Really? Oh, we'll use phone, fax, and rapid response inspections where appropriate. Infections. I say infections, inspections where appropriate. Okay. And will ensure that inspectors take all safety precautions when dealing with CV19 cases. In areas still experiencing high levels of CV19 cases, OSHA will continue to prioritize high-risk workplaces for on-site inspections. In its latest guidance to employers, OSHA acknowledged that it could be difficult to determine whether employees diagnosed with CV19 were exposed at work or elsewhere, so the agency went into more detail than it previously has about how employers should approach that determination. OSHA said CV19 illness are likely work-related if multiple cases develop among those who work closely together and there is no alternative explanation. An employee contracts the illness shortly after lengthy and close exposure to a customer or coworker who has a confirmed case of CV19 and there is no alternative explanation. Job duties include frequent close exposure to the general public in a locality with ongoing community transmission and there is no alternative explanation. Cases of CV19 are likely not work-related if an employee is the only employee in the work area to contract the illness and does not have frequent contact with the general public. An employee outside the workplace has frequent and close contact with someone who has CV19, and that person is not a coworker and likely exposed the employee while infectious. If, after a good faith evaluation, an employer still can't come to a conclusion as to whether a case is work-related, then it does not have to record the illness. That's huge. The main difference between this and previous guidance about reporting CV19 cases, according to attorney Philip Russell with Ogletree, Deakins, Nash, Smoak, and Stewart in Tampa, Florida, is that OSHA is reinstating enforcement of record-keeping related to CV19. The work-related requirement remains, and the agency added clarification that a one-person infection is not likely to be work-related. Employers, he said, also have some flexibility with the requirements if they make a reasonable determination based on objective evidence available at the time. None of this changes the underlying difficulty in making a work-related determination, Russell said. This additional guidance provides a roadmap for employers to make that determination based on reasonable efforts and objective information. Contractors consider CV19 STAB incentives for hesitant workers. Construction workers are among the least likely of essential workers to get the CV19 STAB, according to a recent study. This means construction employers might have their work cut out for them if they plan on either mandating or trying to persuade employees to get the jab. Not many construction firms are considering making STABs a requirement, with the exception of those contractors that work in the healthcare industry, said Brian Termale, Vice President of Public Affairs and Strategic Initiatives for the Associated General Contractors of America. In most instances, it's an owner mandate, he said. Even in those cases, contractors still have to deal with reasonable accommodation requests for those employees that find a reason to resist. The only accommodation, he said, would be to move them to another project if available. The Equal Employment Opportunity Commission's position has generally been that employers can mandate that their employees get the STAB, but the Commission also acknowledges that such a rule would require them to navigate federal laws, like the Americans with Disability Act and the Rehabilitation Act, which requires reasonable accommodation and non-discrimination based on disability and sets out rules about when and how an employer can conduct medical examinations and inquiries. Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination based on race, color, national origin, religion, and sex, and other federal, state, and local regulations. A tricky issue. Most contractors, though, are opting for a soft yet firm approach to the issue with policy phrasing that includes language such as, "We expect you to get a stab," Termail said. As an extra push, some contractors are considering giving employees incentives if they voluntarily get the stab. But what kind of incentives can contractors offer and still stay within the parameters of federal and other laws? That's actually been a really tricky issue on which to advise clients, said Attorney Jill Cohen. Again with the Berg, with Eckert Siemens, Charon and Millet LLC. One of the problems, she said, is that some incentives could be considered a wellness benefit subject to federal regulation. In an AGC document prepared by law firm Fisher Phillips, legal professionals recommend that contractors should consider consulting with an attorney before implementing an incentive program to ensure that it does not violate EEOC regulations, HIPAA included. The EEOC has proposed new rules that would better define what types of incentives employers could offer without, in effect, coercing them to disclose protected medical information in exchange for some reward or in order to avoid a penalty, according to the Society for Human Resource Management. The regulations would limit acceptable incentives to those considered to be de minimis or minor. Under these proposed regulations, even a $100 gift card is considered beyond de minimis, said attorney Melissa, Salim Ben, probably a Berg name, with Chaisa Shahinian. Oh my gosh, these names, I'm skipping them. Another concern with giving these cash bonuses is there could be wage and hour implications. As part of the potato and charge administrative freeze on new federal regulations, however, these new rules are on hold. I didn't know about that. The Biden administration put a freeze on new federal regulations. More than 40 business groups and employer organizations, including the AGC, Associated Builders and Contractors, and National Ready Mixed Concrete Association, penned a letter to the EEOC asking for guidance about which incentives are acceptable and won't violate the regulations that the EEOC oversees. Termail said, it's kind of like turmoil, right? Said there is no indication as to when the EEOC will provide that guidance. Until then, however, there are some incentives that most likely do not violate the law. I think the safest way for employers to do it is to allow employees to go during work time to get the CV-19 stab and pay them up to a certain number of hours, Cohenberg said. Employers could also give employees who feel ill after getting the shot. Doesn't that just make you pause? Really? Employees who feel ill after getting the shot, the paid sick leave. So now they're acknowledging that people are getting sick. Keeping in mind that they might consider offering an alternative for people who can't or won't get the stab. She said, if employers don't have a sick leave policy, then they could handle these situations as they would if an employee was sick for any other reason. Employers who have the wherewithal might all think about hosting a vaccine clinic. Pause. Salim Benberg said, so it is as easy as possible for employees to get the CV-19 stab. That way, she said, there is no cost, no travel, no taking time off from work. Right. Many U.S. states which have their own rollout plans are not yet offering stabs to the wider population and instead focusing on the high-risk categories of individuals like older Americans and healthcare workers. This gives employers time to figure out how they will handle the issue of stabs, Salim Benberg said. Employers need to slow down, proceed with caution, and take time to discuss whatever plan they have in mind with their legal counsel, she said. This is also the time to educate employees on the stab and provide access to the latest and most accurate information, Salim Benberg says. Oh my God, this is the time to educate them because businesses have absolutely nothing else to do except for talk about nonsense. These Bergs, they just drive me crazy. That in itself is sort of a free incentive, she said. Wow. When I was making this video, it made me think about this gal I worked with in the 90s. She was from Cambodia, and she was there during the time that the communists took over. She was a nurse, and she just happened to be on maternity leave, and she said that during that time, the communists came in, they rounded up all of the healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, anybody with any sort of formal training, and executed them. So, I am thinking that this push for this CV is the same thing, rounding up people who are critical to our infrastructure, doctors, nurses, construction workers, whatever, and pushing them to get this CV. It's almost the same because people are getting sick. And, usually I don't listen to the radio, but I just happened to have it on a couple of days ago. And they had an advertisement for, pushing to get the CV. And then at the end of that, or the next thing that they had was they were asking people to donate platelets. And I will have to make a video on that because this one's over 40 minutes. All right, on to the last article. This is a press release from United Contractors. United Contractors launches Roll Up Your Sleeves stab information campaign across construction industry. This is dated March 18th, 2021. And it's pretty obvious nobody wants to get the stab. Contractors Roll Up Your Sleeves Yukon resource and tools to dispel stab misinformation. Because if you don't want something, you are misinformed. Today, United Contractors launched Roll Up Your Sleeves, an informational campaign promoting stabs across the construction industry. This is in response to surveys indicating that the industry has one of the lowest rates of workers willing to be stabbed in the nation. That should give you some pause there, give you a moment to pause and think about that. So these people are unwilling to get this, and now it's time to start a manipulation campaign. We understand that some people are unsure about the stab and have many questions. No, nobody has any questions. They just don't freaking want it. Knowledge is power, and we've collected everything needed for contractors to have informed discussions with their people about this crucial health and safety issue, said Emily Cohenberg, of course, Executive Vice President, United Contractors. The next 60 to 90 days are imperative. Why? Roll Up Your Sleeves provides a one-stop shop for contractors, union representatives, and construction workers to get no-nonsense, science-driven, and fact-based information about the CV-19 stab. They should be honest and say it gives them workers an opportunity to get nonsense-filled, non-science-driven, or paid science, and lie-based information about the CV-19. The site contains credible, reliable, and trustworthy information. Yeah, sure. Somebody is, you can trust me. Yeah, when somebody says, you can trust me, yeah, they're not trustworthy. In one place for the construction industry, and includes helpful tools, templates, and resources to facilitate job site talks in Spanish and English. No one understands or values safety like union construction, said Mark Breslin, CEO of United Contractors. The stab is another critical safety tool for our workforces and our industry. Our Roll Up Your Sleeves campaign will help our workforce get the facts they need to make the best decision. Why? Okay, we've had stabs, I don't know, since I was a kid. And now they're really just pushing this, just shoving it down our throat. You have to get this particular stab, else you're bad. Combating misinformation and adopting stabs is a crucial component of individual, job site, and community safety. How's that possible? It's also the shortest path for our state's vital industries to get back to normal. How are these state's vital industries not normal? Is there some vital industries that are not normal? They slow down in the wintertime. That's normal. I don't think that there's anything abnormal going on. Let's roll up our sleeves. But I could be wrong. There could be some stuff that's not normal. I just don't know about it. Let's roll up our sleeves. Learn more at, this website. United Contractors is a member-driven organization that protects, educates, and advocates for California's union contractors. United Contractors CV19 contractor resource page has served and supported tens of thousands of industry professionals throughout this unprecedented pandemic, and that's a complete lie, providing credible information to protect contractors, and the Roll Up Your Sleeves campaign is yet another way United Contractors ensures that its members and the industry at large are supported with the resources they need. Alrighty, so in a nutshell, contrary to popular soy belief, the construction industry is made up of mostly men, and these men are not doctors and engineers. They are salt of the earth, white men, and it's these white men that have made civilization great. These are some pretty tough men. They risk their lives every day just to go to work. It's not like you sit at a desk and eat tofu and, get coronary artery disease. No, these are real men, and even though the Noseberg tribe is trying to push this death shot on people, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And they're going to continue to have tantrums. So I suspect in the future they will probably target this group of people and go bonkers saying that the construction industry is not complying with the propaganda. All right, white people, that's it for now. Thank you so much for listening. I look forward to your thoughts below.